Before we dive in, if stories like this grip you, haunt you, or keep you thinking long after they end, hit that subscribe button so you never miss the next case. Your support helps us bring the truth to light, one chilling story at a time. The sun had barely risen over Queensland's rugged coastline when the call came through, a frantic father reporting that his daughter hadn't returned home. At first, dispatch treated it as a routine welfare check. Young adults get delayed, fall asleep in a friend's place, lose track of time. But this father's voice, it carried something else, something primal, a fear that didn't come from imagination, but instinct. His daughter, 24-year-old Toyah, was responsible, reliable, and never unreachable. Not like this. By mid-morning, her car was found abandoned near Wangetti Beach, sitting alone in a nearly empty parking lot, the kind of place tourists pass through without stopping, where the wind carries the scent of salt, eucalyptus, and something else, something quiet and lurking. Her phone was dead. Her purse was still in the car. But the most troubling sign wasn't inside the vehicle at all. It was the dog leash on the seat. Toyah never went anywhere without her dog, but the dog wasn't there. Search teams arrived, fanning out along the sand. Her father refused to wait on the sidelines. He grabbed gloves, stepped off the concrete, and plunged into the dunes with the kind of tunnel vision only terror creates. Every rustle in the grass made his heart stop. Every shadow felt like a threat. And then he spotted something, a patch of disturbed sand, shaped like a shallow dome, as if the earth itself had swallowed something it wasn't meant to hide. He got on his knees, started digging. One handful, then another. On the third scoop, the sand fell away and revealed the unthinkable, a human foot. The world around him collapsed, voices blurred, time froze. He remembered screaming, but later he couldn't recall a single sound. Only the sight of his daughter's skin beneath the sand, and the realization that whatever happened on this beach wasn't an accident, wasn't a misunderstanding, it was violence. Authorities pulled him back as detectives and forensic teams surged forward. A perimeter went up. Drones took to the air. Officers began combing every inch of coastline. The body had been buried hastily, unevenly, almost as if the killer panicked or feared being discovered. Not far from where she lay, they found her dog, tied to a tree, shaken but alive. Within hours, suspicion began forming around a man who had been in the area that morning. A man who worked in healthcare. A man who, detectives would later learn, left the country the day after Toyah's body was found. But in these early hours, nothing was certain. No charges.
Back at the station, investigators reviewed the dog's condition, the rope marks on the leash, the direction it was tied, even the quiet, trembling way the animal leaned away from strangers. Animals don't speak, but they react. They sense fear, aggression, chaos. Whatever happened near that tree had left a scar. That's when detectives began piecing together the last known movements on the beach that morning. Witnesses recalled seeing a man walking alone, tall, reserved, avoiding eye contact. No one thought much of it at the time. Beaches attract all kinds of solitary figures, joggers, early morning wanderers, people needing space from their lives. But now, looking back through the blur of memory, one detail stood out: a car. A distinct blue vehicle parked near the dunes, engine off, windows fogged from the night chill. Police traced the plate number, and the name attached to it made everything snap into place. Rajwinder Singh, a nurse, quiet, unassuming, no violent history, no known connection to the victim. Nothing about him screamed danger. He wasn't a shadowy figure from a criminal underworld. He wasn't a fugitive or a known predator. He was a healthcare worker who lived a life many might call ordinary. But the ordinary often hides the most complicated truths. Detectives didn't rush. They couldn't. The case needed hard evidence, not speculation. So they dug deeper. They cross-checked the beach timeline with cell tower data. They searched for traffic camera sightings. And then came the surprise. Singh had left Australia less than 24 hours after Toyah's body was discovered. No formal goodbye, no extended notice, just a one-way ticket. That alone wasn't guilt. People leave countries for many reasons: family emergencies, panic, fear of being falsely accused. But it was enough to draw a circle around him, a big one. Meanwhile, the forensic team delivered their first major report. The stick found under Toyah's body contained genetic material, but early results were inconclusive. It wasn't enough to accuse anyone, but it was enough to make investigators double their efforts, enough to suggest that whoever handled that stick had been close, maybe too close, to the moment everything went horribly wrong. As detectives combed through Singh's history, they uncovered inconsistencies, gaps in his schedule, a shifting story about where he had been that morning. But again, uncertainty. Suspicion is not proof. Memory under stress is unreliable. And detectives, trained to remain neutral, knew they were venturing into dangerous territory. Then came the interview with one of Singh's acquaintances, a man who reported seeing him shortly after the incident, describing him as anxious, distracted, unlike himself. The conversation raised more questions than answers. Why was he stressed? Why did he disappear so quickly? Why wasn't his phone active during key hours? The case was tightening, but not closing. And then, late one night, detectives received new information, data that didn't match the earlier timeline, data that suggested Toyah might not have been alone on the beach after all. Someone else had been there. Someone no one had accounted for. Someone who changed the entire direction of the investigation. The breakthrough came from a source no one expected: the phone records. Not Toyah's and not Singh's. A third device pinged off a tower near Wangetti Beach the same morning. The signal was faint, almost lost, as if the phone had been powered on briefly and then shut off again. At first, investigators assumed it belonged to a tourist passing through, but when they matched the timing, the exact window when Toyah was last believed to be alive, they realized this wasn't random. Someone else had been there at the critical moment. Detectives rushed to cross-reference nearby CCTV footage, scouring blurry clips from passing buses, roadside cameras, and gas stations miles away. Hours turned into days. Days into quiet pressure. And then, in a grainy frame captured at the edge of a highway, they saw it. A shadowed figure walking from the beach toward the road. Not Singh, not Toyah. Someone unknown. This wasn't proof of another suspect. Not yet. But it introduced something investigators dreaded: uncertainty. If a second person had been present, had they seen what happened? Had they intervened? Or were they involved? Or was this totally unrelated, just another morning walker caught in a moment that would haunt the investigation forever?
As detectives chased this new thread, Singh's case moved forward. Extradition, interrogation, mounting public attention. All of it intensified the scrutiny on every detail. Prosecutors analyzed the stick recovered beneath Toyah's body, reviewing DNA reports, contamination risks, environmental degradation, every possible scientific variable. Defense attorneys challenged timelines, questioned assumptions, probed every gap in the evidence. Each side built a narrative, each side attacked the other's weaknesses. But still, the truth remained agonizingly out of reach. Meanwhile, detectives continued digging into the mysterious third device. They pulled older subscriber data, worked with telecom analysts, and followed every scrap of digital noise. Eventually, they identified the owner, a backpacker from Germany who had been traveling up the coast. The man insisted, through emails and calls, that he remembered nothing unusual. He said he hadn't met Toyah. He had no connection to Singh. His alibi placed him miles away, but the timestamps didn't align as cleanly as investigators hoped. Still, there was no evidence linking him to the violence. No motive, no connection, just a presence, a ghost in the timeline. The trial unfolded with emotional weight. Toyah's father testified, recounting the moment he found her. Experts debated the reliability of forensic traces.
Witnesses described Singh's behavior that day. But the uncertainty, the gaps, the unanswered questions lingered like fog over the courtroom. Then, during a dramatic closing argument, prosecutors revealed something that had not been widely discussed: the pattern of the shallow burial, the hurried movements, the footprints partially washed by the tide. They presented a theory, one built not on sensational claims, but on the small, quiet details left in the sand. They argued that the person responsible had acted alone, but panicked, that mistakes were made, that the evidence pointed toward desperation, not premeditation. The courtroom fell silent. And as the jury deliberated, the weight of Toyah's story rippled outward through Australia, through the families involved, through every person who had walked that beach since. Answers were sought, justice was pursued, and still, the deepest truth remained locked in the moments only two people had witnessed, one who could no longer speak and one who had yet to be fully understood. When the verdict was finally delivered, it closed one chapter, but not the whole story. Because justice systems offer outcomes, not perfect clarity. And somewhere along the Queensland coast, the tide continued rolling in, erasing footprints, smoothing the sand, washing away the traces of a morning that changed everything. If this case gripped you, trust me, the next one will stay with you even longer. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.